Hello, hello. Welcome to the first episode of CONFPOD, the podcast for Bitcoin conference organizers. We are going to start this episode with three legends in the Bitcoin conference space. The intention of this podcast, as it came to me, was receiving emails and phone calls of people wanting to know how to run a Bitcoin conference, how to do things. And I am far from an expert in this subject, but at least I know who to bring in to get that expertise in front of us. Our three guests today are really well known in the Bitcoin space. You have Lisa Nifty Neigut. She's a renowned Bitcoin Lightning developer and educator. She wears many hats. She's a Lightning protocol engineer, Bitcoin educator, developer, and conference organizer. She co-founded Base 58, a Bitcoin protocol academy, and started the Bitcoin Plus Plus developer conference series to train the next generation of Bitcoin developers. Welcome, Lisa.
Hey, y'all. Yeah. Hey, Ed. It's really great to be on here. And super excited to talk about what goes into running a conference. I feel like I think it's kind of funny is like I go to all these conferences with developers and all I want to talk about is running conferences these days. So it's great to have a whole audience that we get to share what we know, what we're doing. So yeah, excited to be on the very first episode of ConfPod.
Kiki's the co-organizer of Adopting Bitcoin, the Lightning Summit in El Salvador. She's also co-founder of the Bitcoin Farmers Market. She infuses storytelling and community building into every project. This is not ChatGPT, by the way. This is just me talking. With a background in the restaurant scene and a passion for supporting grassroots Bitcoin adoption, she creates experiences that celebrate value for value exchanges. Essentially, Kiki sees herself as a conduit, bringing people together through food, culture, and Bitcoin. We're excited to hear about how she helped turn El Salvador's Bitcoin Law into an annual community event. Welcome, Kiki.
Very happy to be here.
And you're in El Salvador. You just got in this morning?
Yeah, I got in on Wednesday evening. I'm in El Zonte. I went to the place that I usually would to work, but they're under construction like almost everything else in this country. So I'm in a friend's apartment currently.
Fantastic. Welcome. And finally, but not last, is Brandon Green. Brandon is the managing director of BTC Inc. and was the lead organizer for the Bitcoin conference, formerly known as Bitcoin Miami. He's been with BTC Inc. since 2017, overseeing the growth of the world's largest annual Bitcoin gathering. Brandon often says working on the Bitcoin conference is like drinking from a fire hose. It's a fast-paced and a wild ride. He proudly calls the conference my baby. Under his guidance, events like Bitcoin 22, 23, 24, 25 brought tens of thousands of Bitcoiners together and even attracted U.S. presidential candidates, U.S. vice presidents, presidents of other countries, showing how mainstream the conversation has become. Formerly worked with Brandon at BTC Inc. Glad to have you here, Brandon.
Yeah, excited to be here. Very excited to chat. This is a cool idea, and both Nifty and Kiki are killing it, and honestly create like very amazing events. So I'm also excited to learn from them, to be honest.
Perfect. Well, as you all know me pretty well, let's start with a softball question. Tell me about the worst thing that's ever happened at one of your conferences. Who wants to go first? Come on, Lisa, what do you got?
Okay, this is a hard one. I think this is a hard one because I feel like running a conference is similar to like debugging software. Like as soon as I fix the bug, I forget it existed at all. Like, we just like solve the problem, we move on. But I feel like one of the biggest issues I had lately was like with we had like a partner that we were co-organizing with. It was this really great group of Argentinian guys who had this truck that they were using for like a barbecue party. And so we did an after party that was Argentinian barbecue in Berlin last year. But there was some miscommunication with the venue we were using, and they ended up leaving it like a way bigger mess than like the conference organizer or the venue host wanted. And so I had to like run over, like they were running late. So I had to like run over and like explain, Germans are like very on time, punctual people. Argentinians, I think, are a little more loose with their concept of time. So it was kind of like I was managing a little bit of like a cultural clash in terms of expectations of what people were expecting, along with like, we didn't leave the venue in the condition that they were expecting it. And so it was like, okay, had to basically like talk to the venue owner afterwards and apologize. And
Yeah, and that has nothing to do with Bitcoin, does it?
no, no, not at all. But it was all Bitcoiners, like it was really, really cool that we got to bring these Argentinian Bitcoiners to the event. all the way over in Berlin and have them like run a whole like actual, real Argentinian barbecue for us. It was just kind of all the logistics around it weren't super smooth.
Yep. Awesome. Great story. Kiki.
Man, throwback. We switched venues for adopting Bitcoin last year. We moved to a different venue. It's absolutely stunning. Yeah, it's kind of like nestled 10 minutes out of the city. We bring in food vendors and everything. Everything that we do on site is Bitcoin only. So we really have to like bring in and kind of pop up, if that makes sense. And someone else other than myself on the team was handling the communication around internet. And I don't know, I just had like this red flag in my gut way early on being like, there's something about this that like something's going to go wrong here. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know much about like networking, but I know something's going to go wrong here. I was assured many, many times everything was fine, but we had our opening remarks scheduled to start at 9 a.m. The night before, we ran tests. Everything seemed fine, but as soon as people started pouring into the venue at like 8:15, no internet, none. We had installed a backup Starlink as well, and the weather was admittedly horrible in El Salvador at the time. Starlink didn't work either. So we had people who were trying to register, people trying to buy coffee, et cetera, et cetera. Just nothing was working. And I was like, damn, I knew it. I had this feeling. I knew it. I tried to ask the questions, but I wasn't equipped with the knowledge at the time. And so needless to say, this year we have made a lot of changes, and this will definitely not be a problem ever again over my dead body.
I was a speaker at that event, and 10 minutes outside of town is very gracious.
Depends on traffic.
It was a little more than 10 minutes, but once you get there and you're in the jungle, and it was just so beautiful that the internet being out actually was a relief. For at least a day, right? It was like, okay, this is kind of cool. It separates you from the rest of the world to come to a Bitcoin event.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Kiki. Okay, Brandon, what do you got?
I mean, we have screwed up so many things with our event. It's hard to pick one. Like I could probably give you 3 or 4 for every single year. I'd say, if you wanted like our crowning achievement of screwing something up, so it has to be like in terms of just like broad scale of the mess up, our Sound Money Fest music festival that lost us like $5 million that year. That was pretty solid. It was a ton of fun though. And like already we're starting to get that itch of like, should we try it again? Like, is this the year that we try it again and get it right? And then we all kind of like slap ourselves because we promised we would if we ever thought to do this again. But, and I'll also say that only afterwards did we see an interview by Dave Portnoy, where he said that he actually almost bankrupted Barstool early on by trying to throw a music festival and never throw music festivals. And we were like, well, gosh, that probably would have saved us some time if we had just heard that interview before. But anyway, we learned the hard way here. The other sort of famous screw ups we've done in the spirit of, not having internet that worked. Obviously, we did the launch of Square's Bitcoin terminals at this past event, and the payment failed like on stage to demo the new terminals Bitcoin acceptance. And thank God that it was only David Bailey, our CEO, up on stage doing it, because we originally had planned that the vice president was going to be giving that transaction. So fortunately that didn't work out, and so the gaffe was a little bit smaller. And then I'd say, the last thing would be the most famous mistake or issue that we ever had was our boy Jordi Montez, who needed to leave the building because he snuck in through Secret Service and held up Trump for speaking for like, 45 minutes while the Secret Service was interviewing him and understanding why he tried to sneak into the venue to evade Secret Service. So yeah, those are all a few like high profile screw ups. Lots of things go wrong in the background. The one thing I will say though is, the more things that go wrong, like we only make the same mistake once. And so that means that our team is now like very well equipped with like a lot of learnings from a lot of things that can go wrong. So, it's a great team, and I'm sure we'll find ways to screw up in the future, though, and we'll all be along for the ride for it.
Yeah, I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, at the end of the introductions, but I used to work for Brandon Bitcoin conference, trying to bring enterprise to the Bitcoin conference when they weren't ready yet. Then went to run the Bitcoin for Corporations conference at Strategy, and now running events for Bitcoin Treasuries Media with Tim Kotzman. I think that in order to be a conference organizer and event planner, you've got to be intense, but the ability to just laugh and let it go off your shoulders, because things are going to go wrong, and how you react to it is so critical, because if you totally lose it, the event's going to start to go downhill, and you just got to let it bounce off you. Let's transition that into the topic of planning, because we all know that the more and better planning you do, allegedly, the better your event will run. Tim and I are consulting right now with an event that's going to be run in Madrid, and she has all these plans and ideas for things she wants to do for the first event. And like I did with Tim with the event in New York, he had his list of all the things, and I just cut it in half, right? Because you got to start as simple and then build if you want to add on a Sound Money Fest, or you want to add on. Kiki, when you started working on this one in El Salvador, you're going into a new country, doesn't know Bitcoin, trying to do a new event. What kind of challenges did you have during the planning phases?
Yeah, so to be clear, I wasn't a part of the original couple of years. I joined in 2024, but I'm quite close with the people who were. I mean, the first one that happened in 2021, the stories of it are insane, because the gang crackdown had not happened yet. So there was still like a lot of security tension, of course. And obviously 2021, like the COVID travel situation was a bit of a nightmare as well. Actually, the event is part of the reason that El Salvador started easing up on some of the travel restrictions that they had, which I think was like has resulted in a very like positive momentum for them in terms of tourism, and specifically Bitcoin tourism. But in terms of me joining last year, I mean, it's interesting to run a bilingual conference. Like yesterday, I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm kind of putting on two conferences in one right now, because this year we're planning like 50-50% English and Spanish. And there is some crossover, which is great, but like I guess the topics might change just based on like what's trending in certain communities changes a little bit. And then having a team where some people speak Spanish, some people don't, like a couple people only speak like very basic English, communicating with the venue who mostly speaks only Spanish. That's kind of been like the biggest hurdle that we've faced in that sense. Aside from that, it's also like specifically for this year, to be transparent, a lot of things have changed in El Salvador. And so we are trying to navigate that and kind of continue with our momentum that we have built as adopting Bitcoin, and not necessarily get too in the weeds about everything else that is going on in the country. There are a couple of events that are happening around ours as well. They're all kind of niche in their own way. Like the Bitcoin Historico is being put on by the government and by Max and Stacy. But I understand the content and the perspective, and even like the target audience for that is somewhat different than
Totally
ours,
different.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're a little bit more grassroots, a little bit more, well, certainly a lot more scrappy. I think our budgets might be slightly different as well.
What planning tool? What's your principal planning tool? Is it email? Is it a spreadsheet? Is it Slack? What's your tool?
Yeah, we're like very much spreadsheet,
Okay.
signal group scrappy. I was speaking to someone the other day who was inputting their speaker like bio, and he was like, "Hey, I don't like how this works in your
Yeah.
system." And I was like, "I respect that, but
This is what we got.
right."
Hey,
And he was like, "I can solve this for you." I said, "I'll talk to you in 2 weeks."
Lisa, you're doing, I think it's 24 events a year, one every 48 hours. Tell us about you and planning. How do you plan all these events back to back to back?
Yeah, it certainly feels okay. So we're not quite at 24 events, but it definitely kind of feels that way. We did 3 events, so we're international. We do events all over the world. We ran 3 events last year. We're doing 6 this year. We just finished number 5 in Berlin 4 weeks ago. We're about to do number 6 in Taipei in like 5 weeks. Man, I'm gonna be honest, like I'm probably like the most type B person doing a type A job that you'll ever meet. I uh I have no idea. I think you just start messaging people. Like I use Signal. I don't really use email. It's probably like the number one. Maybe that's like the hack. Um I don't use email, and I've kind of built my own like I'm a software developer, and so I kind of built my own system for managing like speaking agendas, like who's talking when. I use spreadsheets. But like, okay, so where are we going? What conference are we doing? Um, it's like, it's kind of a joke, but it's not really. Like I tell people, you're on a good date, or like you're out like dating when by the time the date is over, you've already made plans, like hang out with the person next time, just kind of naturally. I feel like running Bitcoin Plus Plus has been a lot of that, where hanging out with friends at a Bitcoin Plus Plus event and we start talking and it's like, oh, okay, like what if we did X with this topic on this date? I'm like, okay, let's like make that happen. And so it's just from like talking to people, figuring out kind of like what makes sense in terms of like local teams, funding that I could be able to find for that particular topic, time of year in that location. And you just kind of keep saying yes to cool ideas, and things just kind of like naturally arise out of
Together.
that.
Yeah.
So it's
And you,
kind of
just to be
ad
fair,
hoc.
I think your events have less overhead than maybe some of the more formal structured events. You don't have a stage with lots of AV and flying in speakers. Yours are a little more impromptu, or am I making a bad assumption?
No, I think that makes sense. I think we're definitely like smaller, most of our events are about 200 people. We find smaller venues, things are a little more ad hoc. I put like zero work into like after parties, like um there's no like food truck vendor fair, anything. Like I'm really just focused on who's coming, what are we talking about, and is everyone getting fed? Because usually I pay for like catering for everyone for the whole thing. So kind of like cut out everything except like the essentials. We do most of our AV in-house. We don't do big stage productions. Yeah. So
Okay. So Brandon, you could go on for hours. You've got an amazing team. Everybody knows that Addie really runs the show, but we keep that secret. What are the secrets to planning an event of your size?
I think the other two just hit on it, but communication first and foremost. You just have to over communicate everything to everyone, and that includes everyone on your team. So comms wise for us, as you know, we lean on Slack pretty heavily. For other systems, we like to document everything in Notion, so that we have kind of a nice repository for everyone to pull from. And then our programming runs through Airtable. We also have the Brella app that is sort of a front-facing app for attendees to be able to get information. So we try to keep that live. We communicate a lot through our website, and then we have tons of marketing emails and marketing tweets to communicate information. And it's all like I make this joke, or not really a joke. It would be a joke if it wasn't true, but now it's just kind of true. So it's like in a lot of ways, our job is to just like spew words, and then like things happen. It's a very strange concept, but like we're not the ones hammering the booths together, but like if we don't communicate the right things to the booth manufacturers, then the booths don't get made. And so like most of our team spends the entire time just really articulating the vision, and then trying to piece it together a little bit. But most of the conference gets pieced together in the week of, frankly. So it's cool. I mean, it's a really strange concept of an event. I say a lot of times it's like kind of you just meme it into existence. You just like say things enough and everyone starts believing that they're a thing, and then everyone shows up. Yeah, that was a ramble,
Yeah.
but
No,
that's kind of how we plan it.
That's good. In my time working with the Bitcoin conference, it was always amazing to see in that last week how much, really came together where you're like looking at things going, this isn't going to happen. The one that Tim and I did in September, we basically had 6 weeks. And in some ways that was difficult, but in other ways it was just such an intense focus for 6 weeks that you knew what had to be done by what day. Now that I've got 11 months, it's like, well, let's wait and wait and wait. And you don't end up planning as far ahead as you think because there is that certain amount of, timing.
No, 100%. And in fact, like sometimes having too much time to plan will almost be to your detriment because at the end of the day, people won't lock in to come until they like have some sort of forcing function that requires them to lock in. And so if you're like trying to drag out a lot of the momentum you're trying to build for your event for too long, then you may not get the right oomph at the right time to get the right people sort of locked in. So sometimes those tight timelines can actually be helpful, but then you don't want to go too tight, in which case, like you don't have enough time to really get the flywheel going. So it's a balancing act.
Yeah, well, I'm going to stick with you for a second, Brandon, and then I'm going to skip you on this one, Kiki. But I think Brandon and Nifty will have different answers on this venue selection. I called you, well, it was about a month ago to talk about this. Like, how do you pick a venue when you really have no idea how many people are coming? You guys have gone from what was the name of the one in Miami in 21?
Yeah, we were at Mana Wynwood and then the Miami Beach Convention Center.
Yeah.
Before that, we were at SVN, which is a San Francisco converted car dealership. That's our roots. And then
now the Venetian and these amazing facilities in Dubai and UAE. No, yeah, Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi, yep.
So how do you do that? How do you pick a venue when you don't know how many people are coming?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you kind of just throw a dart and you think like, I think that we could get X number of people there in year one. And for us, like we just based on sort of our distribution network through Bitcoin Magazine and some of our partners, et cetera, we usually think we can kind of get 4,000 people as a floor, like if we're in a major market. And then it's really a game of compounding year over year. So like we want to see these events grow somewhere between like 50% and like 2x growth in terms of attendance. And that really helps sort of decide the the venues from there on out. So, but it's a challenge. I mean, you're at the end of the day, you're kind of taking a risk and you just have to make sure that like you're comfortable with the financial and sort of optical risk that you're taking based on the size of the venue.
Yeah, fantastic. And Nifty, for the 200 person events, how do you find these locations worldwide that, have the right personality to meet with what you're trying to do with BTC++? Because you don't want a conference room at the Holiday Inn. So how do you do it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I depend on locals a lot. So usually like whenever I run a conference in a foreign place, I'll usually have a friend there. I don't really do events somewhere I don't have like a local contact that can help like negotiate the deals or navigate bureaucracy if I need to. And then they'll usually have suggestions. And then usually I like do a visit. I'll like take a trip out and I'll hit the pavement and go to all the different spots and take a look at what they're like, walk around the neighborhood on foot. Second ever event we did was in Mexico City in December 2022. And we did it at this weird, it wasn't weird, but it was an old hotel, had this like suite of conference rooms at the very top of it. I was a huge fan of it. It was like kind of an older, not so fancy place, but it was like kind of a cool spot to be in my mind. We had good views, good light. It was cheaper. But yeah, it's just literally like I landed in Mexico City and I think in the first day, I just like walked around this neighborhood. I knew what neighborhood I wanted to have the event in. And I literally just like went in and out of hotels from Google Maps and asked them if they had any conference space. And finally, one place was like, we don't have any conference space, but if you go down the street and around the corner, there's a hotel that might. I didn't call ahead. I didn't have appointments. I kind of just like showed up and looked at stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's like a little bit of
Yeah,
on the foot.
I think it's an important part of a Bitcoin conference in particular. You know, I was in manufacturing for 30 years, going to manufacturing expos and conferences. I was always in an expo center, and you know, Brandon won't be hurt by me saying that the Miami Beach Convention Center just didn't have a ton of personality, right? It's a big square building, right? And there's something to having it be a destination event, something that has a little bit of personality. You know, when we did ours at Levon in September, it was like, well, there was this huge problem with noise in the lobby, but the digital walls and the way that Levon laid out, it was just perfect for what we were trying to do. Let's get to a topic that I think all of our 12 listeners will want to really hear about, is ticket sales. Kiki, how do you manage ticket sales for an event where, what, 90% of the people are flying in?
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch that percentage distribution change. So last year we hit 50% locals and 50% foreigners, which is exciting and is like a good reflection of what's going on here. But what from day one, the goal of this conference was also to provide education to locals, and you know the average salary here is very, very, very low. And therefore, we provide tickets at a very, very, very low cost for locals. So as we have more locals coming, our ability to earn revenue on tickets goes down. And so it is a bit of like a dichotomy. It's amazing. It's something that we want to continue to support, but we also really need to make sure that we are, you know, meeting what we need to meet in order to make this happen. And we kind of have to like do it in various ways. Like one of the things that became very obvious last year was there's a lot of neighboring countries as well to El Salvador that have people who have low income, like on average as well. And it's complicated. We don't want to say like, oh, if you're from this country, then you get this price. It's just too much kind of thing. So instead, what we did was reach out to some of the, you know, grassroots communities, the circular economies, the education communities, and said, here, we understand, you know, the dynamic of this situation. We would love to have your people come in. We're going to provide you with a cost that makes sense to your community and work with you. And then kind of go from there. We have tried a couple of different tactics. At the end of the day, because we are very grassroots focused, it's like we want to make it accessible to as many people as possible. But you know, we do have to push back sometimes and say, hey, look, like we have to balance the books here. But yeah, it's an evolving challenge, but it is really interesting to see the dynamic of who's coming to this event kind of change over time, and it's very encouraging, I think, for the Latin American community specifically.
What's your ratio or percentage of ticket sale revenue to sponsorship revenue?
It changes every year, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah,
50/50?
it's not been consistent. 50/50 is probably the overall average, but yeah, it has changed every year. It's not consistent. That does make it hard for us to project accurately.
Yeah. Before I go to Nifty on this one, you know, when Tim said we're going to do this in 6 weeks, he had this whole ticket price escalation that as more every 21 tickets sold, the price go up. And the last ticket was like $10,000. I'm like, Tim, nobody's going to pay that for a one-day event. And being in New York City and selling to Wall Street, man, they just kept buying them. And the day of the show, we sold a couple $4,000 tickets. And so I was wrong and Tim was right, but I am not complaining. Nifty, how do you get people to come to your, because I would assume that they're local, but you're getting people that are traveling as well. How do you ensure that the ticket revenue comes in?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm like so terrible at sales. I'm like really good at planning events. I'm really good at getting the right people in the room for the conversation on stage. I have no idea where people come from or how they found out about it. I'm also like probably the least, I mean, maybe to my detriment, but like I really don't track like, you know, who's flying in, who's local. Occasionally in some venues or some locations we'll have like a local ticket sale option, kind of like what Kiki was talking about. Like, for example, we're going to have our second conference in Brazil this next February. I'm super excited about it, but like locals just can't pay as much for tickets, and they really aren't used to paying as much for tickets as foreigners are.
Do you have people that go to multiple events that travel around and
Yeah, I have like a crew that'll come to like a bunch of events. I mean, I think part of it is definitely like I do a pretty good job at picking places people want to visit. So people show up because they want to come to this place, and I'm giving them a reason, an excuse, and like a built-in fun network who's going to be there when they're there. So yeah, I definitely have like a bunch of repeat people. Also tend to be quite well connected to like the local dev communities, like through whoever my local contact is. It's trying to do a pretty good job. I feel like two places that we struggled this year is getting locals out. Like, so we did, and a part of it was just like, scaled up and didn't really have much of a comm strategy even for local stuff, which isn't a very good recipe for success in terms of ticket sales. But we went to Riga, and I think we were like surveying, just informally surveying how many people there were locals. I think we had like maybe 2 or 3 volunteers that were locals. And the rest were all people who had flown in for the um, Baltic Honey Badger Conference, which was happening the weekend, kind of like right after our event. Also in Turkey, we didn't do a great job of getting locals there.
I think
But
Brandon's got an idea for you, Lisa. You need to sell a Justin Sun golden ticket
there you go. Okay.
so that people can go to every BTC event the rest of their lives for what did that ticket cost? $5,000 golden ticket.
The Golden Whale Pass. So what he's referencing in 2021, and I think we did it again in 2022, and he actually bought it again. We did a Golden Whale Pass that was supposed to be like a forever whale pass to our conference, and I think Justin Sun bought it for $60,000, but he paid in Bitcoin, and so he paid 2 Bitcoin thereabouts for it. So I would hope somehow, like somewhere in our finances, we've still got those 2 Bitcoins sitting around. But
So
yeah,
Brandon,
no,
you're
it's
going to pretend to tell us you understand ticket sales perfectly and how to price them and how to structure them and how to sell them?
absolutely. As evidenced by the fact that this next conference for B26, we made our GA tickets free. So just to introduce chaos into the mix. But man, ticket sales is like the number one just moving target, white knuckle aspect of all of it. You really don't know what the ticket sales are going to do until you're going into like FOMO time. And FOMO time is usually the last like 60 to 30 days, frankly. And we've seen everything from like our ticket sales double in the last 30 days to actually in MENA this past year, our ticket sales, I think, quadrupled in the last like 2 weeks. And so it's really crazy. Like I think there's something about like the Dubai Abu Dhabi market that they tend to like really just show up last minute. They make their plans very short. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to like sit there and think like, all right, I know this is a good event. I know people are going to come, and you just kind of like wait for the ticket sales to start up, and it's never a given. Like it's truly never a given, and it also makes you appreciate your kind of community that much more when they do show up in a big way, because at the end of the day, we put on a labor of love. And we do this because we love Bitcoin, and we want to, for us, like we want to do something big for Bitcoin, right? Like that's what we want to do every year. We want to wield our conference and make it have some sort of massive impact on Bitcoin. And like the cheat code of it is we leverage the fact that we're going to have so many Bitcoiners there to go convince someone to do something crazy big for Bitcoin, right? And so it's like if they show up, then we're all good. If they don't show up, we got egg on our face. So fortunately, Bitcoin community keeps showing up in a big way, and we get to turn that into at least some very fascinating, if not big wins for Bitcoin as well.
For any of our 12 listeners who are looking at scaling their event, which ticketing platform are you currently using? I know you've gone through a few, but
we've gone through. We did Eventbrite at first. That was fine. We did Tixer was 2022. Now we use TicketSocket. That works pretty well, actually. I kind of like it. So, there's a lot of different platforms, though. Those are just like 3 of many. And I'm really hoping at some point someone builds like a very solid, Lightning or I know we don't like ordinals, so it can't be ordinals, but something sort of a ticket platform that we could just issue directly on the network, because I think that would just be cool.
Yeah,
But
we use Luma. We're looking at Bizaboo, but there are a lot. Ted and I went through 10 different demos, and it's like there's no perfect platform out there, and you got to think about scaling. Kiki, which platform do you use for ticketing?
We use Pretix. We've been using Pretix for a while. But I'm really, really interested to learn more about what Portal is building. I know my colleague Kamal has done a couple of demos with them. They're not ready quite yet, I don't believe, but I'm really curious to see what they're building, how it works out. It is something that we would love to consider in the future.
Cool. And Lisa, your ticketing platform is based on runes, I assume, or?
Yeah, I don't know, can't tell if I'm off on. No, we use, I built my own ticketing platform.
I see. I knew it.
of course you
Yeah.
did. Of course you did.
Yeah, you can check out with Bitcoin or fiat using Stripe or OpenNode. And then, yeah, like the whole QR code issuing thing is something that I hand rolled, and it sends you an email with your ticket. And then check-in is done by volunteers that just scan tickets, and it gets checked and marked in. So yeah.
Cool. Well, when
Thanks.
we get JR on one day, Brandon, we'll have to go through a whole session on checking people in, which we just gave up about 10% of the way in. We're like, yeah, just come on in. It's like,
No, it's brutal, and like I will say, I know that people have built like really solid ticketing platforms that like are very Bitcoin native, but like we have so many needs in the way that like we do our ticketing. First of all, we track a lot of information through promo codes and like UTM links, and then additionally, we like have to do some of our promo codes are like dollars off, some are percentages off, some are locked into a price no matter what the actual on the surface price is. Sometimes we have like hidden tickets that you have to put in a promo code in order to reveal the ticket. So it's just like it's kind of all sorts of stuff that I have a feeling we're going to be like one of the last adopters of the Bitcoin ticketing platform. But we're very pro, like we really want to see it happen because, frankly, we'd much rather hand all of our kind of ticket processing fees to a solid Bitcoin company than, some random fiat, Live Nation derivative type thing. So, but we do love TicketSocket. So if you're listening, TicketSocket, we love you.
I didn't want this podcast to be about shilling events. I hope people aren't tuning in going, when are they going to tell me about the upcoming events? There's no real one website. Maybe confpod.com will put that together. But before I let you do a quick shill on the events that are coming up, why don't we go through and we started with what went wrong. Why don't we go through why do you do it? Why do you do it, and what do you get out of it? To inspire the listeners out there, is to encourage them as we all get into the nightmare of running events. But Kiki, and then Lisa, and then Brandon, I'm going to spoon feed you yours because I know what I want your answer to be. But go ahead, Kiki. Why do you do it?
I mean, a lot of reasons, but ultimately at the end of the day, in regards to my work with adopting Bitcoin in particular, just some of the moments that we get out of it, the relationships that we get out of it, and like the impacts that we can have, again, especially with like grassroots and communities and circular economies worldwide, is like, I don't know, there's no better feeling. And we have done everything that we can to support. We really try and give back to the community and educators. And like, I get goosebumps thinking about it. That's why I do it. Like it's a way to give back to the community ultimately.
Awesome. Lisa?
Yeah, so I mean, Bitcoin Plus Plus is technically focused, and one of the reasons that I really like it and running it and keep running it is it's really fun to have the conversations that you can have at a Bitcoin Plus Plus about what people are building, where Bitcoin is headed, what matters, what people are thinking about in terms of the protocol. It really feels like this awesome opportunity to get developers around a certain topic together, talking about what they're excited about, why they're working on what they're working on. And I think it really, new ideas get created, new projects get started at the hackathons we do. It's this really awesome opportunity to kind of see like literally the frontier of Bitcoin moving forward through the events. And yeah, I don't know, it's kind of addictive.
Yeah. So Brandon, I'm going to spoon feed you here. You may or may not remember this. This would have been 2023 in a coffee shop in Amsterdam. You made me cry. Tell us the story of you getting on the phone to a certain inmate. And call and zoom in on his face here. He's going to cry.
Yeah. So I will get emotional about this because, I told the team coming out of this past event, Bitcoin 2025, that if we had completely failed on our face, if we had never done anything, but we got Ross out of prison, that it would have all been worth it. And, in 2021, we did a interview with Ross while he was still in prison. We kind of told him we were doing a media interview, but then we just kind of called in and then let the phone go, and he just gave a speech. And that landed him in the shoe. They put him in solitary confinement for, I think, 2 weeks afterwards. And we found out about that night. This was like the night in between the 2 days of the event. And his mom, Lynn, came to me the next day and was like, listen, Ross is in the shoe. There weren't a ton of people in the room when you played it. Like, would you mind playing it again? We played it again the second day, and we had a packed house, not a dry eye in the room. And it's just one of those things where, like I said, being able to wield is such like a strange word to say, but like wield the Bitcoin movement and try and make good things happen in the world for Bitcoin with it is like such a unbelievable opportunity. And I also think responsibility that we have to really try and not just throw the conference for the sake of, some industry event. Like, we want to change the world with it. And so, I mean, this past year was very exciting. Of course, seeing Ross out there and seeing him in the event. Also having the vice president there was pretty cool. And I'm really excited to see what we can do this next year. I think it's going to be a pretty incredible event as well. And we're cooking things right now for it. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what it is. It's can we make an impact in the world? Can we help Bitcoin, achieve hyper Bitcoinization?
I don't think the people running the International Rubber Expo in Hamburg can get this emotional about their events, So, okay, well, thank you all very much. Go ahead and chill. Brandon, what do you got coming?
We got Bitcoin Amsterdam. Actually, I fly out next week or tomorrow for that. That event's next week. We got Abu Dhabi in December 8th and 9th, and then Bitcoin 2026, April 27th through 29th next year in Vegas. Would love to see you guys there.
It's b.tc.
b.tc/conference.
Nifty,
where can people find out about your 87 events a year?
Yeah, it's btc++.dev. We've got our next event's going to be in Taipei. Oh, actually, there's one next weekend in Durham. It's like our first local edition. So that'll be a pop-up. So if you're in the North Carolina area and are listening to this ahead of it, you want to come check out a local Bitcoin plus, we'll be in Durham November 15th. And then we'll be in Taipei. And then if you're US based, we're going to be running our first most controversial Bitcoin plus yet. We're doing one at the Hoover Dam right before the big conference that Brandon's team is throwing in Vegas. So check that out. It's up on the website, I think.
Is it at the top or the bottom of the dam?
It's gonna be at the top of the dam. We're gonna be overlooking the reservoir. Yeah.
It starts at the top.
Starts at the top, yeah. Depends on how successful we are at blowing Bitcoin up. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Cool. Yeah.
And Kiki, what do you got coming?
Yeah, we have Adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador a week from today. So that's November 14th and 15th. It's going to be a good time. I'm so in the weeds, but I love it. I'm eating up every minute of it. And then we also have a Cape Town conference that'll be in January in Cape Town, South Africa. And maybe some more interesting things in the works for next year. We'll see.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all very much to this first episode of ConfPod. I hope we were able to talk about what it's like to run a conference, give you some tips and ideas. We'll keep a cadence of once a month. I'll get 3 more guests next month. If you have an idea for a better host than me, I'm all ears. But the idea here is to have us help each other and share ideas, share our thoughts, and make life a little easier for conference organizers so that Bitcoin succeeds. Thank you all very much, and we will see you on the road.
Thank you.